Hi, good morning.
Hey everybody!
This is Dave and Gianna Jenkins on Facebook Live. We're going to be discussing in a few moments a topic we've had a little bit of conversation about, and the topic is how should a missionary respond when national leaders and crowds are shouting, "If you don't like our country, leave."
Yeah, but before we get started on that, we want to give a little time for people to be jumping on here. We just want to ask you guys how your summer's going. We'd love for you to comment and tell us what things you've been up to. We've had a pretty busy, great summer.
Mm-hmm.
Started off around the end of May or middle of May. We hosted a
Kwibuka 25, we hosted a commemoration for the 25th year after the genocide against the Tutsi happened in Rwanda. Did that on May 18 at Judson University. Didn't have a huge crowd, but we had some real quality people, and I was sitting there listening and was just amazed at the depth of wisdom.
A lot of wisdom. For those of you who have 45 minutes or an hour, I would encourage you to go to our website, and we've posted a link, and also I think it's on Dave and I's Facebook about a live link about the event with different people sharing, and there's a lot of wisdom in our East African community, and we would love for you all to hear and be blessed. Besides that, summertime, a lot of our friends in the East African community, especially around here, after we've all been hibernating in the winter,
it's barbecue time.
We come out and we have lots of barbecues. So we've been going to different barbecues and parties. We've hosted a few small events at our place, and it's just been fun fellowshipping with people and listening to people share their stories. And
today I'm going to go to the Sudanese community in Chicago this afternoon is having a barbecue to celebrate their graduates. I'm going to go to that in the afternoon. Tomorrow morning, Jan and I plan to go to an Anglo church, Cornerstone, in Glen Ellen, which is where I office and has always been very kind to us. And then in the afternoon, we're going to Team Henrietta's barbecue, a meet and greet, as her team is talking about the agenda that they have for the upcoming UNA elections, the Uganda North American Association. And I'm going to stumble into politics as a missionary, no matter how I do it, but let me just make a UNA comment. I'm not hearing any candidate who has an agenda that I think is ungodly. I hear a lot of good ideas for all the candidates. I am noticing there's some tension. So I'm going to just show up and love on everybody. And when it's all said and done, I hope we can get a good agenda going with UNA that really blesses young people. Everyone I know who's running for office is saying that's what they want to do. So,
well, thank you, everybody. It looks like there's lots of people on.
Maybe we should hop into our topic.
We'll get going talking about. I don't know how you guys feel, but it's been kind of a rough week. Just especially hearing different people's dialogue and perspective over Facebook, and even some in person visiting with people. And Dave and I just wanted to say a few things this morning, so I'll let Dave get started.
Well, I'm not going to, at this point, draw specific attention to the specific individual or the crowd shouting. But there has been a message in the United States over the last week that has become really clear: if you don't like the United States, leave. And one of the interesting things for those that are Jan and I's Facebook friends, usually when we get anything started, when we start our Facebook Lives, and then I go back and look who has looked at it, who are we dialoguing with, typically about a half to 2/3 of the people who we're dialoguing with are people of African descent who have immigrated to some place in the West. We have a real wide following amongst diaspora people that are scattered in Europe, some in Asia, significant numbers in North America, and probably about another third to a half typically are people of European or maybe they're Latino or some other descent, but they have become very aware of the ideas of America as a mission field. And they really want to hop into these conversations. A lot of them are people who have lived overseas. We tend to have a very global audience. And for those of us that have global experience, one of the most painful memories that we have, and I've had people say this, I'm shocked that I'm hearing this in America, but I remember growing up and they would say I was this ethnicity in this country outside the United States, and there was tension, and people were shouting at me, if you don't like our country, leave. Mm-hmm. And it scared them. It spooked them. And some of them had got the opportunity to leave that country and come to the United States, and they came largely trying to find a place of peace where they could live out their faith. But as they arrived in the United States, they arrived again as an ethnic minority. But that's an experience that our people have. Mm-hmm. I'm always cautious to do things that would make myself as a missionary or some of the others who have missionary experience look like heroes, because we're all so flawed. But it's a pretty common experience too if you have been sent by a church or a mission organization to another nation to go as a missionary to proclaim the message of Jesus, make disciples, start churches, and usher in all the kingdom possibilities, that as you go to a new location, you start to stumble into the dark spots of a culture. And as you do that, you start to try to figure out how to confront it. Maybe you don't always do it the wisest or best, but you start confronting it. And it's a pretty common missionary experience to be in a government office, or even maybe if you rose to a national level, to have some government leaders start shouting, if you don't like our country, leave.
But I do want to push back a little bit and say, overall, I really feel like we were very welcomed in the countries that we were at, and
I think that's true.
More so, unfortunately, than I see Americans being welcoming of our friends. I mean, I know there are people that are being welcomed and feel welcomed, but there are these things that people say, or looks that are given, judgments and things, and we even have people that are candid with us and say, I don't know what you and Dave are doing and why you're working with these people. They just need to go back to their country.
Yeah, I've actually had, I'm probably sound a little angry, and maybe some people out there need to feel both these emotions here. I've actually had people who are driving denominational mission and church organizations tell me, what you need to do is baptize those Africans and send them home. Let them go home and proclaim Jesus. And I'm thinking, but wait a minute, most of the folks I run around with come from very strong Christian heritages, and they've never seen so much paganism as they see in the United States.
So we kind of want to change the conversation a bit.
Yep.
And focus on... And
let me affirm, our East African community, there were seasons where government officials pushed against me, but generally I was received very, very graciously.
Yeah.
And we left with a very good working relationship with Ugandan and Rwandan national leaders, and they're still good friends of mine. Yeah. Thank you for giving some measure to my prophetic nature, Miss Jana. Go ahead.
To change
back to the United States.
Conversation. What the conversation that we want to have today is...
What do we do as missionaries when we're starting to hear this word, if you don't like our country, go?
And we're seeing those of you who are listening that are from East Africa that are now living in America.
Or from Asia or Latin America. I mean, we know Africa, but there's a lot of other places where people immigrate with a Christian tradition to the United States. We
prophetically want to tell you that we see you, that God has brought you to the U.S. for such a time as this.
Exactly.
You're not just here because of your studies. You're not just here professionally. But God has you here for a reason, because you can bring light to this dark, dark world.
Exactly. And, something I've been reading through, I try to read my Bible every day, and maybe a few days I don't quite get to it, but I've been in Acts recently, and one of the things you watch as Paul goes into new cities is occasionally he will quote a pagan philosopher, a pagan poet, a pagan historian, and will point out, here's a god, an unknown god, or he writes to Titus about the Cretans, and he quotes a Cretan poet, and basically he will take at times uh, individuals who are not Greek speaking, or maybe if they were pagan, or he will quote people who are not believers at all and say, hey, they're actually seeing some issues that the gospel has to address. And I think one of the things that's happening right now in the United States is people who have immigrated here within several generations, and their skin color is not white, and maybe their belief system is not a belief in Jesus' resurrection, but they still look at the United States and say there's things that aren't right here. And the two things that I notice they'll specifically focus on is there's ethnic tension in the United States. There's a long history of racial sin that has in some ways been dealt with legally, but the intuitions are still there. People still make racial judgments that are inaccurate. And the history of the United States being largely a middle-class economy is starting to dissipate, and we've got an increasing number of people falling into poverty. And I kind of look at those conversations, even if it's someone who doesn't share my belief in Jesus' resurrection, I think that Paul would look at that and say, you're pointing out the places in the American culture where the gospel has to speak loud and clear, and as a gospel messenger, I'm going to step into that.
Yeah, and I think those of us who follow Jesus, who follow the way, we need to stand up and we need to speak. When other people are being criticized and being marginalized and being judged, as Christians, we need to speak up and bring grace and bring a message of hope and forgiveness.
And let me
and listen.
And let me kind of say, okay, folks, I know that we're having these conversations. I know it's disorientating, it's confusing. At times it makes us feel afraid. We wonder what's going on. And I kind of said, okay, and Paul would look at the conversations that trigger that and say, hey, the gospel would address these issues in American culture. I want to now say, okay, if you're here in the United States and you're a relatively recent immigrant here, within the last few generations, your people have moved here, you look like a minority, or maybe you reason like a minority of people in this country, and you're feeling really uncomfortable, I want to ask you to do the things that missionaries would do. And in fact, I don't have my notes, I'm going to just go off the top of my head. If you see a language, a tone that's ugly and full of anger, can you speak in such a way that is peaceful? Can you turn down the volume? Can you find a way to forgive and be kind and go an extra measure to serve and to even suffer? And at the same time that you do that, hold strong to your convictions and find very good ways to speak so people know, hey, he doesn't agree with me and he's got some good thoughts, but they hear it with a tone of grace is one thing I'd ask for you to do. Another, Jan may want to hop in here, is I've mentioned two things that jump out to me in the American experience that say the gospel has to address. One is the tone and the anger directed against ethnicity, minorities, ethnicities, races. Another is the increasing levels of poverty in this country. And
it's really becoming a bigger and bigger
becoming
gap.
a bigger and bigger two-tiered economy. And there's some specific ways that those who come here as immigrants and missionaries can address that. And one of the ways is that immigrants have proven themselves to be some of the hardest working people. Keep getting up in the morning and going to work. Get your kids to school and get them as far as they can down the path of education. Keep doing that. You're already doing that. And start new businesses, and you're already doing that well, because an economy needs social glue of hardworking, educated people, and by doing combined efforts of starting businesses, going to school, going to work, you start to build the social glue that can dissipate the amount of people falling into poverty. You're creating jobs. Keep doing that. That's what missionaries do. Another thing, is the belief systems. I hope I'm not unduly wounding those of you who would come in and you'd like to hear the idea, oh, Dave and Janet talk about America as a mission field. And then you see, but we turn and say, the pagan belief system that is so pervasive here, and you go, oh, wait a minute, you're talking about our belief system. Well, we might be. And I want to encourage those of you that are saying, I'm here as a missionary. This is a point where you've got to find the best possible ways that you can speak the message of the gospel, proclaim the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. And then Jesus said, and teach people all truth. Start fleshing out Old Testament stories that are about justice, and Old Testament stories about how prophets speak to kings. And teach truth and teach Proverbs so people know how to live.
Mm-hmm. And I think even just inviting people into your life and building relationships and being friends with each other, I think that can really open a lot of doors. I think people who, I think we all are involved in prejudices.
Yeah.
We all jump to conclusions and are quick to put people in categories. But for me, what breaks me out of doing that category is when I'm building a relationship with people. Then I see a glimpse into who they are, and I feel like our East African friends have so much to teach us and to share with us, and I would encourage everybody to build what we can do this week in this environment where people have been shouting, go home, is instead of, I think it's important to come out on social media to say this is not how you feel and to speak up. I think speaking up is very important, but I also think action is important, and I would encourage people to reach out and make a friend that looks different than you are, and learn about them and build a bridge in that way. And I think that's really important.
Last kind of major category I want to talk about is, I know when I've had people shout at me, if you don't like our country, leave. You start to think, do I need to leave? You start to scrap together, start to look at your bank account and think, do I have enough to get a plane ticket? What would life be like if I went back home? Have I gone as far as I can here? Is it time to leave?
But for a lot of people, this is their home.
Well,
yeah.
It is, and I know that as I say this, in fact, maybe let me say this. When you become a missionary, your loyalty shifts from the nation of your passport to the kingdom of God. And you end up being able to live in many national contexts and say, in a certain way, this is my home today, this is my posting. And if you look at Paul, he obviously was thought through what he was doing well, but his basic movement strategy was preach the gospel until I'm getting beat up and I can't stay alive anymore, and then I move on.
Yeah, I get your point.
And some of us, if you're that type of person thinking, I'm called here in the United States, but now the tone is rapidly changing, you start thinking, is there other options out here? And a lot of our folks are international people. They can get on a plane and get another visa in another country and get another job, or they can go back to what was their ancestral home. I'm going to say, I think at such a time as this, America really needs you. We need your presence.
That's the message we want to say.
And I want to encourage you to really think strongly about putting deep roots in the United States and sticking it out through a season where people might be shouting at you. And I want you to know, particularly if you live in Chicago and this is getting wearisome to you, come hang out with me at the Sudanese cookout today. Come hang out with me at Henrietta's barbecue tomorrow. And let's just be at peace. And then you could just pop by our house. We're here every Wednesday night, every Thursday night, every Saturday night.
Evening. You're always welcome.
Always will find us here.
Coffee's on, tea's on. We'd love to listen to you, encourage you, pray with you. And we want to thank you so much for listening this morning. We want to hear, and these are some of Dave and I's thoughts. We want to hear your thoughts. And we really want you guys to comment and dialogue with us. This is not just a one-way conversation. We want to hear your thoughts and your perspectives. I think that's what makes us all wiser. And so we really hope to hear more from you. We want to kind of shift gears a little bit here at the end and just share a little update about how things are going with our organization that we've started.
East African Diaspora Community. We are a project of Faith and Learning International.
That's right. And everything is all set up now. We're excited because We have online giving, so people can give that way. We've had people give one-time gifts, but currently right now what we're really looking for is monthly contributors that we would like to call patrons. And that's what we really need. We need people that believe in what we're doing, that care about the things that we're involved in, and that are willing to support us. And it's very easy to get on. We'll put the links down below here in a few minutes. But it's very easy to set up a reoccurring monthly giving, and that will really help us. It'll help us to be able to budget easier. And Dave and I are used to living by faith, a string and a prayer. But currently, right now,
we had to count for Faith and Learning says craft a budget, and they gave us categories, and the categories said this is what it would look like healthy, and then we crafted a budget, and then we put in what our average giving is, and we were running at 19% of a healthy budget.
Yeah, so we have a ways to see how we've got lots of miracles and lots of ways to see how God's going to make this all come about. But we really feel called to this, what we're doing, and we can't do this without you guys. And
I'm watching I'm going to be curious when we get done. I'm seeing a lot of feedback. We obviously are hitting a nerve. A lot of people are thinking about this. And I hope this doesn't sound too harsh, but I know that some of the people don't have many resources. We draw on a lot of people who are diaspora struggling. But if you want to see this continue, we do need some financial help. Please try to help out if you can.
Yeah, even a little bit. Even if you can commit to $10 a month, over time, that really builds up. I have had one friend that has supported us all these years that we've been missionaries, and she's given, I think, $25 a month. Might not sound a lot to you, but has meant a lot to me. And over all these years, I'm not a mathematician. If my son was here, he could
work it out.
But it's a lot of money, and so every little bit helps and counts. And even more than money, guys, we really want your prayer support.
Even I'll say this, as I'm watching on this, and we'll go back and read all the notes, we're getting so much feedback with this conversation, and it helps us to know, okay, it's not just us that are feeling this way, but there's a lot of us that are feeling vulnerable as missionaries, and we need to be speaking together about how to live as missionaries in the West.
We hope you guys have a great Saturday. We don't want to take up any more of your time. Go out there, make a friend.
Go to a barbecue and have fun.
Yeah, have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.